Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. I think we got enough time to talk a little bit about this. Yeah, we got plenty of time. And then we'll get into the book and how you operationalize the definition so that you can use it in scientific research study, particularly with survey data. So, what were some of the things, some of the issues they were talking about here? Okay, what is affluenza, and what were some of the descriptions they were giving of it? What were some of the symptoms? So, yeah, that's Alex?
Yeah. It's like a chronic desire for more things, for more material wealth.
So what were some of the symptoms of that?
Debt.
So one thing they said was a rash of bankruptcies.
Right.
So people are, in order to achieve these things or afford these things, people are doing what?
Spending money they don't have.
Right, and where are they getting the money?
Credit.
Right, at interest.
Yeah, interest.
Right, and if we look at the 2008 housing bubble, isn't that basically one of the serious issues what was involved in there, that people were taking on too much debt and not enough income? And more importantly with the 2008 thing, what kinds of houses were people buying? Sensible houses?
Lavish.
Yeah, anybody know what a McMansion is? What's that word mean?
A which mansion?
McMansion, like McNugget. I'm sure McDonald's doesn't like this, but anytime McDonald's is like Lizzie Lohan. There's no bad publicity. Okay. Did you see the other day she said she's a homebody? It's because you got a little bracelet on your ankle and you can't leave. That's why you're anyway. But seriously, so what's a McMansion? Go ahead.
It's the, can't think of the right way to describe it, but it's like mini mansions that are just constantly being put up.
Yeah, there's a prefabricated, whereas
yeah.
a lot of mansions are, if you're going to do a mansion, like Bernie Madoff, you hire an architect and he designs it and it's unique. And you even pay, some of these mansions, they pay the architect more than most people would pay to build the house in the first place. So they'll give the architect $500,000 to come up with some blueprint. And they'll build it. And here's a little atrium and a garden. And it's gorgeous. And if you got $20, $30 million to spend, it's not that bad. What McMansions are is like, you know what prefabricated houses are. If you've ever seen Levittown, these are all houses that were constructed like a puzzle. Like here's a wall, and you put this wall together, like, you know, you put the pieces together like Lincoln Logs or Legos. You just slam them together, and there you go. That's why none of them houses originally in Levittown had what? Anybody know? They didn't have basements. Anybody live in Levittown? Anybody ever been to Levittown? Or been in a house in Levittown? Were there basements?
I never was in a house, but in Levittown.
Okay.
There's like a really small part that does.
Actually, no. I saw a girl that lived in Levittown once. So
Did she have a basement?
No, I don't think so. No.
Right. Now some of them they added basements
Yeah.
to some of them, or they built
But
it
it's
later
like
on.
it's like all the way on the end. It's like more close to like Tawanta. It's like a really small area, but it's still Levittown.
Yeah, and they basically, all they did, if you saw, they showed pictures of it, and there are actually documentaries on Levittown, if you're interested, and I'm pretty sure they're probably on YouTube. They would lay down a concrete slab, and they just build a house that was basically a box. It was just a box. And it had, you know, the first ones were. Some of them were like L ranches and stuff, but they were small, reasonable houses, and they were out away from the city. That was the big point. And what that initiates is suburbanization, the loss of revenue in inner city schools. You have this commuting that makes cars more important. So suburbanization did a fair amount. But in line with that is these McMansions, is that the Levittown houses were like this, like, you know, like the little Monopoly house, the little green thing. The McMansions are like the hotels, the big green buildings. And that they're, usually you have a family, maybe of 4, maybe of 3, 2 parents and a kid, or even maybe just a parent and a child, with 8 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, an attic, a basement, a sub-basement, a walk-in, 2 or 3 walk-in closets, a living room, a family room, maybe 2 family rooms, a big backyard. And you know, if you can afford that, that's fine. I would say though that most people would not buy a house bigger than what they need. Although if you're owning a McMansion, you hire somebody to clean it. Dusting a house that big, I would make me want to jump off a bridge. You know, just run a vacuum cleaner over it. Just cleaning to me is like, it's a necessity that it's like the ultimate evil. Or something like that. And not that I'm against a clean household, but every time I clean, I'm like, man, I could be doing something so much better than this right now. So anyway.
I babysit for people that have like cats and that live in Jersey, and they'll
clean before the cleaning lady comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Because they
mom
don't
was
want.
that.
Because they don't want people to think that they're dirty.
Yeah.
Marge Simpson did that. She won a house cleaning thing, and she sparkled. She was like, "What is this woman going to think? She's a professional cleaner." So, but even if it's simple to clean or people don't mind, think of the energy and the space you're wasting to heat that house over the winter or to air condition it is outrageous. And think of all the space. And on top of that, can these people afford these houses most of the time? No. And around here, to get a McMansion, somewhere like Cleveland or something, a McMansion would run you maybe $300, $400, maybe $1 million. Around here, a McMansion's going to run you $5, $6, $8, $10 million. I mean, you're talking ranch houses around in this area. Just a ranch house, one floor, maybe 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. You're talking probably $600,000 to $700,000. Easy. Around here, what you're buying is the land and the schools. And you're on the North Shore. Like, look, when Victoria Gotti and J-Lo have a house in your neighborhood, I don't think the home prices are going to be very cheap, does it? Don't both of them? Victoria Gotti house, I believe, was foreclosed on, actually. So, anyway, yes?
I was going to say, in Jersey, still there's McMansions, and it's in the wrong neighborhood.
Are they brand new?
They'll just build it in the wrong neighborhood, so it'll probably be bigger.
So a poorer neighborhood or a
Yes.
crime-ridden neighborhood.
And then the taxes will go up. Because they have it in my neighborhood, and it's right in the middle of the street.
This actually happened in Brooklyn. Brooklyn was gentrified, where they were kicked. There was a lot of poor houses building, rundown brownstones. Some developers came in and either redid, if it was possible to redo them, or knocked them down and rebuilt. And now there's like these upper middle class people, and it's not, people have to live places. But and one of them is actually my friend. His name's Professor Baldwin, and he lives in a brownstone. He actually was smart. He got in early, and so his house was relatively cheap. He pays like $600-700 a month for his mortgage or something like that. So, in the back.
No, I was going to ask you, how much around here, like, it's on the water?
That's millions. You're talking a jumbo loan. You'd have to go to a real bank, and you better have a 780 or an 800 credit score, and you better have about $500,000 or $600,000 in the bank to put down.
Because my buddy lives on the Jersey Shore in Brick, like over there.
That might be a little bit different, though.
He said it was like 5-6 million.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And it's probably not an enormous house, is it?
No, it's not. It's beautiful. It's like
You're talking if you want to talk Montauk or Southampton on the beach, just the land alone would be $3-4 million probably. If it was a big enough plot, an acre or two. Bernie Madoff's house was $60 million.
Like Billy Joel has a mansion out there, right?
Yeah, and he probably ran through the front door in his car. If you guys don't know Billy Joel, first of all, there's a park named after him in Cold Spring Harbor, and it's like it's no bigger than half of this room. Secondarily, he is not allowed to see his. I know this is a little bit off base, but he is not allowed to see his daughter or drive around with him because of the repeated DUIs that he's had. And on top of that, he went to Queens or Brooklyn to a pizza place that he's been to for like decades, and he ran through the front of the store in his car and busted down the bricks in the. So Billy Joel's got some problems with his judgment that wouldn't surprise me. Yes, but he lives out in the Hamptons and a lot of these other people, and that's not their only house. Bernie Madoff also had a $10 million apartment in Manhattan. With all kinds of artwork on the wall. I mean, you want to talk about a construction. If we have time, I will show you the CNBC story of who this man was. Because you guys have heard the stories, and maybe you hear little bits of things. But to put it together is quite a frightening reality. It really is. Either that one, or maybe I'll show you the in-run stuff. The next documentary we're going to watch is actually about how companies and businesses get you to buy stuff. They use like aromatherapy. They'll use certain music in stores, all kinds of stuff. Pheromones, stuff you can't even smell. So anyway, that's why Amazon does this stuff too, like with little things and they direct you to certain places, and internet search engines are designed to do this too. That whatever you search, they'll put an ad up that's right next to it or something like that. So, but anyway, right. All right. So one of the problems is wanting more and more, wanting more to be comfortable or wanting more to show off. It might be a little bit of both, but I'll tell you right now, how many bedrooms can you have? I mean, how far can you lounge? I'm barely 6 feet tall. I don't need much space. I'll tell you what. The one area where I would like to see some more luxury is on airplanes. That's the only thing that really drives me crazy about like being somewhat middle class or lower middle class. That on a plane, if you go into Europe, to sit in a seat like that for 8 hours. It makes you want to pay $3,000. You ever seen the little beds? Anybody been on a flight to Europe? In the front compartment of many airplanes, they have reclining chairs and will slide all the way back as beds. And they're like $4,000 or $5,000 for a round trip ticket. It's like the Concorde or something. Either that or get a Concorde, because I'll take a flight for 2.5 hours or something like that. So. But anyway, so it's not just, it's about maybe desires that people had when they were children, that they want to fulfill, fantasies they see from the media, TV shows like Cribs, things that, look, capitalism says if you're successful, you need to do what? Or at least show it off. What are you doing, right? If you're rich, but you're driving a used car, what are people going to say to you? And it's a perfectly functional car. Like you own a 2000 Honda Accord, and there's nothing wrong with the paint, and it looks perfectly fine. What is somebody going to say to you if you have $5 million in the bank?
Why are you driving?
Yeah, what are you driving that piece of crap for? So this comes like this pressure. And it isn't just wealthy people doing this. This is everybody does this kind of stuff. Right? What about the stuff, why do rappers, and not just rappers, but and other musicians as well, hip-hop as well as heavy metal, although heavy metal's not really as much into this. What's up with the bling-bling stuff? What's up? What does that mean, ghetto fabulous? I don't know what that means. Why do these people show this stuff? What's the point of having platinum around your neck and stuff like that? And here's the bigger issue. I think we're clear on why they're doing this. Is this having any impact on young people? Let me be more pointed as well. Do people in street gangs listen to heavy metal music and rap music and stuff like that? Is that some of their favorite music? Let me put it another way. Did NWA come out with a nice side of the tracks?
No.
Dr. Dre, was he wealthy when he was young? No. Okay. So they feel, hey, this is my God-given right. I'm successful. This is the way I'm going to do it. We're styled it. Here's our style. But I think maybe that they're unaware or they don't care about what's the impact on young people. Do you think 7-year-olds should be watching Big Pimpin'? Not only that, because of the sexist content in there. I wonder if Beyonce watches that and goes, don't ever make another video like that again. Anyway, but you look at Jay-Z, right? Now he bought the Brooklyn Nets, and he's like a big star. And look, he's an intelligent businessman, okay? But some people would accuse him and other celebrities, not just him, or it could be Paris Hilton, of spreading this, not only the consumer lifestyle, but this conspicuous consumption. That it's not good enough that I have a lot of money. If I'm LeBron James, I have to have a 20,000 square foot home. LeBron James's home has a sports bar in it, a casino, a 2-story closet. This is just his house in Cleveland. It's not the one in Miami. He's got obviously a full gym, which if you're a professional bowler and you have a bowling alley in your house, I don't think that necessarily that means you're some kind of materialistic person. But again, he's got all these lavish things, and part of it is because that's what people expected him to do. Even before he got out of high school, his mom went and bought a Hummer. And he almost lost his eligibility as an amateur athlete because of this, because it came out later that an agent that was working with LeBron lent her the money to buy the car, and that's against the rules. I think it was like 80 or 90, something ridiculous, and they knew it wasn't her car. I mean, and on top of that, or just take something from Ohio State. Terrell Pryor, for example, got knocked off the Ohio State football team, and now is in the NFL. Because he was taking $3,000 to $5,000 a week from people by selling memorabilia stuff that was given to him from the store or from the school. Like when you win a bowl game, they give you a ring, or they give you a shirt, or they give you these. When you beat Michigan, they give you these golden pants. And if you sign them, he was signing them and trading them for tattoos and trading them for rental cars and stuff like that. If you've ever seen the documentary The Pony Express with Southern Methodist University, Eric Dickerson was getting paid 6 figures a week to play for that team. So this infects all aspects of our life. We see this in schools. We see this in government. We see it obviously in the economic institutions. So there's a lot of things pushing this. What are some of the other stuff that they talked about? What was the connection between affluenza and families? What was that about? Yes?
Creates tension within parent relationships because the husband and wife are
So, and next to infidelity, the number one reason why people get divorced are issues with money or arguments over money and things like that. So there's an issue there. Plus, and I think you mentioned this a little bit in your answer, what is happening to children who grow up in these households? What are they learning? What? To some extent, but even something deeper than that. Go ahead.
To attach like a lot of value to material objects.
Especially in the world of with a high level of divorce, right? One of the insidious things that goes on during divorce is parents play children off of each other. They the father will tell the kid what the mother's like. Oh, your mom going out with any guy, and like badmouth this person. And in order to curry favor with your children during a divorce, what do some parents tend to do? Buy them things. You want ice cream? Hey, Dad would buy me ice cream. Right? I remember doing this with my dad. I remember like dropping hints that I wanted a Nintendo, and all of a sudden it showed up. And he didn't just buy me the regular Nintendo. He bought me the whole thing with the little robot and the gun and all that other stuff, the deluxe version. Because my dad, like at the time, he thought he was a high roller. He still thinks he's John Wayne, but that's a whole nother story. He's probably going to watch it. Anyway, what about social scars? What do they mean by that? How does affluenza play into social scars?
Is it like the permanent effects on society?
So remember, let's go back to that foundation of the family and forget Reverend Haggard or whatever his name was. What were they saying that the pursuit of material things prevents you from doing from a civic perspective? We're all citizens of the United States. We're all members of a family. We're all members of a community. But on a larger level, we're all members of the public world that's called America. We're all Americans. And therefore, being a citizen in a nation should come with particular duties. Now, what kinds of things were they suggesting, community activities that were being harmed by materialism? Patrick?
I feel like you should volunteer, like soup kitchens, because you want to help others, and the fact that we're kind of deviant because we don't want to accept the fact that we have obligations to
try and make society better, or like for example, a materialistic person would not care about littering. That wouldn't be a big deal. They wouldn't see any value of giving away toys at Christmas, other than maybe if they got accolades from it. Like someone saying, "Oh, look at this great guy," take a picture of. Like if you own a business, he's like, "Look, this guy's playing Santa Claus. Isn't that great? Let's go buy some stuff from his store." But the element of, look, people are not engaged in politics, and therefore corruption takes place. People are not aware of how products are made, therefore environmental damage takes place, and the abuse of corporations can expand itself. At least this is what they're saying. And that it leads to a sense of that everybody's out for themselves, and that you can't depend on anybody. And that affluenza can create a sense kind of lack of morality, an amoral sense that the public world is very unfriendly, and if you don't watch your back, someone's going to stab you in the back. And if you don't watch your stuff, it reminds me, people in prison eat like this. Why? They eat like this. Their arm around their food. Why? That's right, because somebody will snatch your food. Those of you who have ever seen Half-Baked, remember it's like, give me your fruit cocktail. I won't do it. If I give it to you today, I'll have to give it to you every day. Do you know who you're dealing with? Anyway, so the key is don't give away your fruit cocktail unless the squirrel master is around. What was some of the cure? What was the things they said for the cure? Yes.
Simplicity.
So voluntary simplicity. Is that? And they said that was catching on. Has that caught on? And a lot of people would look at that and go, what is this, the revenge of the hippies? Right? I mean, people would criticize this going, what's the problem with this idea? What if let's just say, for sake of argument, that 308 million people, they're tired of it. They're tired of the debt, they're tired of money, they're tired of having a garage full of crap that just collects dust. And I bet you by watching this affluenza thing, if you think, I want you to think, especially at your parents' home, because if you live in a dorm, it's probably not like that, although some of your dorms are probably stacked up to here with stuff. especially because they're small. Think about how much stuff is in your basement, or garage, or attic, or a spare room, or storage space. Some of you probably not a lot of stuff. A lot of you, it's packed to the ceiling. Right? It's not navigable inside these places and stuff like that. So, but the issue is, let's say if 308 million people just said, all right, that's enough. I'm going to cut my hours in half. I'm going to live on 1/3 of my salary. I'm not going to go to the store and buy new clothes. I'll repair stuff. I'll grow vegetables instead. How much are vegetable seeds? Is it like 79 cents? A head of lettuce is $2-3, right? And all you need to grow a vegetable garden is sunlight and water. And water, that's a small fee. And you can get rain, so there's free too. But anyway, or carpool, which when you guys go down on the highway, it's the carpool lane filled with people with 2 or more people in their car. Some people get so creative they put. Somebody got busted with it. You can buy dummies to put. I'm not kidding. Homer one time in The Simpsons put a ball of candy in the seat and put sunglasses on it. Anyway, so from 308 million people decided to do this, what happens to economic growth tomorrow? What happens to the economy of the United States when people stop spending?
Sure.
It more than shrinks. The Great Depression would look like good old days compared to what's going to happen to the employment rate if everybody just stopped purchasing things all at once. Or even drop their, if Americans just dropped their spending by 20%, that means the GDP of the United States would drop by 20%. Walmart wouldn't have anybody there, and it might be a good thing on some levels. So at least people would get to go home and spend with their kids. But the problem is, in the future, nobody would have any income. And so the prices of everything would go up. There would potentially be civil unrest. Yes?
So would that mean that money could lose its value at some point? Like if it got
money can lose its value at any
Well,
point.
I'm saying if it got that bad, where no one could work,
Well,
no one could make money, would people just start bartering? And
Yeah, people would be like, hey man, I'll clean your house if you feed me some soup.
Right.
That's what happened during the Great Depression. By the time FDR took over, because Hoover didn't do anything to increase the money supply, people were basically, hey, I'll paint your fence if you let me stay here for the night. That's the kind of crap that was going on. Like, banks were ruthless. You couldn't pay your mortgage, it wasn't as, I'll sue you and it's going to take 90 days to get your house. No, they would come in and just take the keys, basically say, they'd send a sheriff in and say, get the hell out. So there was a lot of cruelty in the system. And back then, right now, if you have $100,000 or less in a bank account, what happens if the bank goes under?
You don't get it?
No, you get that money. 100,000 or under, you get it. Right? FDIC insurance. That came out of the Great Depression. When people lost their entire bank accounts, see ya. It's like, oops, sorry. Sorry we messed up your money. It's like Bernie Madoff, you know? I mean, look. They ought to, you know what they ought to do? Instead of leaving him in jail, just sit him in a room with about 50 of the most intense Mets fans in the world, and problem solved. Or Kevin Bacon, either one. And Kevin Bacon's probably a Mets fan, so maybe not. Who knows? Anyway, all right. So the solution might be worse than the disease itself. Is voluntary simplicity going to catch on? Let me put it this way. Do you think that people spent more money this last Christmas or less money than the Christmas people?
More.
Are people throwing more trash out now than they were in 1997 or less?
More.
Now, part of it is there's more people on Earth. Believe it or not, even in 14 years, we probably gained 25 million people in this country. Immigration, birth rate is pretty high. Unlike Japan, where they're actually losing population. Russia was too. Russia's population in 10 years dropped 17% after communism. So there was a whole host of reasons. Tuberculosis went up, a lot of poverty, a lot of suicide. They didn't need any reason to drink, and it just gave them more of a reason. All right, so let's move on. So we've talked a little bit about affluenza. We'll come back to the causes of materialism. Affluenza is one version of materialism tied into the consumer economy. But as we go along, some of the things we're going to do, we're going to talk about the causes or origins, and we're going to connect those things to macro social forces, the rise of the consumer society, the rise of television, the desire, the philosophy of capitalism and the desire to keep growth going. Okay, the desire of politicians to make sure there's no unemployment. You remember what George Bush said after 9/11? What did he say? He told people to do what? He told people to actually go out and shop. He was like, I know you guys are scared. And the subways are dangerous. And probably there's people lurking around your neighborhoods looking to kill you. But go to the malls anyway. And at least you know if you got blown up at the mall, well, you died helping America. Anyway. Look, don't get me wrong, because there's Republican presidents I respect. Okay? And there's Democratic presidents I disrespect, like Kennedy. So don't think this is some kind of a party politics thing. Because if you've been in any of my other classes, you know that I beat on politicians like dirty rags. Okay? And they stick to the wall, too. Anyway, one of the other things they were talking about that I want to briefly discuss before we move on to operationalized definitions is on page 21. It says all the studies, this is something they talked about spreading around the world. All the studies reviewed thus far were conducted in the United States. It is interesting to know that one of the world's wealthiest, most powerful nation appears to be inculcating values not conducive to its citizens' well-being, but the possibility remains that the results are specific to the United States. So they're saying, hey, look, this is a common scientific question. Is what we're seeing in the United States specific to the United States, or is it common maybe to European or advanced industrial nations, or is it around the world, right? Are third world nations, developing nations suffering from this illness? And where's it coming from? And you can bet part of it has to do with this fact that U.S. popular culture spreads around the world. I mean, that is our #2 export, next to food. Okay. Which is why North Korea gave up their nuclear weapon, or part of the reason why. Anyway. Perhaps this phenomenon is the result of certain cultural features, such as the economy in the United States, television shows, or the history, and does not hold in other cultures. To address this issue, several studies have used translated versions of the aspiration index and of personal well-being measures in samples of people around the world. Thus far, studies with British, Danish, German, Indian, Romanian, Russian, and South Korean college students have confirmed the negative associations between materialistic values and well-being. It doesn't mean that they found high levels of materialism in these countries. What they only looked at was, here is the equation, okay? That you have these causes, and many of them are macro in nature or cultural, okay? Large cultural forces telling people to buy things. This then leads to the development of materialism that is both very intense and widespread. Meaning that, here's the difference between intensity and widespread. You can have 100% of your population that smokes cigarettes, but if they only smoke 2 cigarettes a day, is that big of a deal? I'm telling you right now, you talk to any doctor, they won't say this out loud, but they'll tell you 2 cigarettes a day. It's very rare you're going to get cancer from that. Frankly, and this is probably not a good advertisement for cigarettes, or maybe it is a good advertisement. My dad smoked cigarettes for 30 years. He doesn't have lung cancer. Okay. Now, having said that, nobody in my family has ever gotten cancer, ever, any form of it. So, and geneticists will tell you, cancer can sometimes, pancreatic cancer, 90% genetic, from what I heard. So, if you do have it in your family, get checked regularly. Okay, seriously. And pancreatic, you ask Patrick's face, 3-4 weeks after you diagnose, you're dead. Okay, it's serious stuff. Jimmy Carter's family had it. Anyway, so the idea here is that materialism is intense in individuals, that there's a high level of it, and it's widespread, and that it leads to social issues, so social problems. And again, we're going to break each one of these things down. We'll talk about the causes. We've already talked a fair amount about the elements of materialism, which we're going to get to more today. And then we'll talk about its connection, not only to social problems, but just as importantly, issues of personal well-being. And obviously, these two things are interrelated. If you have a lot of people who are under stress or feeling suicidal or homicidal, that is going to cause social problems. Right? It's going to strain health resources, it's going to strain police departments, it's going to strain court systems. If you have a large amount of people who are addicted to drugs or alcohol because they're materialistic and yet they can't achieve their goals, it's going to cause problems, right? With kids, with schooling, with all kinds of stuff. In families, it's going to be an issue. That's the equation they're talking about here. But they did find it. The problem with some of those countries, if you look at them, look, Britain might as well be the United States, or they would say it the other way. Right? Britain has a weird relationship with the United States. They don't like the fact we fought 2 wars with them, and frankly, we fought a couple more than that actually. And they see us as sort of their little step brother or something like that. And they're proud of the fact that we're the biggest bully on the block, or the biggest heavyweight champion on the block. But they also don't like the fact that they're no longer the champion, right? They're like Apollo Creed and we're Rocky, or like in Rocky 2, or something like that. Like we kicked his butt and we got on that about it or something. So, and then China's like Clubber Lang, who's going to beat the hell out of us someday. Anyway. Even Mohawk. Anyway, so again, and you see these countries, Britain, Denmark, Germany, even Romania and Russia, those are very close to the United States on a lot of levels. Although I would say with India and South Korea, well, South Korea to some extent, but India especially, was very seemingly an unmaterialistic place. All right, now, before we get to all of this stuff, let's talk about how how materialism was constructed in these studies. So go to page 18 here. And one of the first scales that was developed in the 1980s was by a researcher named Russell Beck. And Russell Beck broke this down on page 19 into three main categories, elements that he felt were related to materialism that he wanted to test and design questions for. And we'll see whether or not these questions are appropriate. So, you can see them here. The first element he thought was important to ask questions about was possessiveness. And the questions he asked here are stuff like this. Renting or leasing a car is more appealing to me than owning one. I tend to hang on to things I should probably throw out. That's the hoarder question right there. I get very upset if something's stolen from me, even if it has little monetary value. I don't get particularly upset when I lose things. Like, it depends on the answer to this question whether or not you're materialistic. I'd rather buy something I need than borrow it. I worry about people taking my possessions. This one is a weird one. When I travel, I like to take a lot of photographs. That doesn't even... To me, if I was working with this guy, I'd be like, look, there's a lot of reasons why people take pictures. Now, if it said, when I travel, I like to take photographs of things, wouldn't that be sort of a material... Like one of the things, remember we talked about Hitler didn't like to do portraits? Many times what you focus on in a photograph or an art is very, like a psychologist will have a field day with that. That's why they tell kids to draw pictures, like if they've been abused or something like that. Draw pictures where daddy hurt you. The second part of it is non-generosity. And these are questions like, I enjoy having guests stay at my home, so if you answered no to that, you'd be non-generous. I don't like to lend things, even to good friends. It makes sense to buy a lawnmower with a neighbor and share it. I don't mind giving rides to those who don't have a car. I don't like to have anyone in my home when I'm not there. That's not an element of materialism or non-generosity. That's just, I don't want people looking through my personal papers or whatever. I mean, somebody gets in your underwear drawers. I mean, what kind of weird stuff is that? So most people don't do that kind of stuff. But anyway, I enjoy donating things to charities. Another one. The last one is this element of envy. Do you want what other people have? And these questions, I think, are a little bit better. I'm bothered when I see people who are buying anything they want. It goes on and on down the list. One of the questions is, when Hollywood stars or prominent politicians have things stolen from them, I really feel sorry for them. To say no to that means you'd be higher on the materialistic scale. On table 2.5, Richards and Dawson's in 1992 looked at this from a different way. They looked at other things. They looked at, one, they asked questions about how important success was to you and how you define success. Two, the centrality of material things. And three, I need to go back and watch Sesame Street. The idea of happiness tied to material things. So here are some of the questions. Under successes, I admire people who own expensive homes, cars, and clothes. Doesn't that seem like a better question? Now, one of the things that happens is when you develop a survey and you're the first one who does it, there's mistakes, right? You should give it to people to revise. Once the study comes out, another scientist goes, oh, I could ask better questions than that, or maybe we could revise these questions and get a better look. So that one seemed like a better question. Under centrality, for example, I usually buy only the things I need. The second question there is, I try to keep my life simple as far as possessions are concerned. So this is all about the centralness of material things in people's lives. The last one is, what things make people happy, or what material, non-material things. So some of the questions here that were asked on this survey was, I have all the things I really need to enjoy life. My life would be better if I owned certain things I don't have. I wouldn't be any happier if I owned nicer things. Okay? I would say with that one, a lot of Americans would have a hard time answering those questions in a non-materialistic manner. A lot of Americans. I think 8-year-olds would have problems answering that question, right? So the problem is, when you know that you're being tested for materialism, is there a tendency not to answer the question in an honest manner and give the researcher what they want to hear? Or at least not present yourself. Well, this used to happen when I was a kid. They used to pass out these anonymous drug surveys that the government would do. And in 9th and 10th grade, I had a very anti-establishment attitude and very oppositional attitude towards the whole entire world. Basically, I hated the world. And so I did what I wanted as far as disrupting things. So I was really upset that they bothered to take my time out of my day to make me fill out this drug form. So me and our friend, one of the questions was, how many times do you do heroin? And we put 5 times a day. Stuff like that. And that was one of the only times we did that, but we thought it was hilarious. And again, that's an extreme example, but don't you think people sitting here going, you know what, I don't consider myself materialistic, but answering these questions makes me look like a materialistic person, so I'm going to start answering. It's like, if you ever had a job, you ever apply for a job and they give you a personality inventory, and you're sitting there going, I love questions like, it's okay to steal all of the time, most of the time, oh, some of the, I swear, like, or stuff like, if you were starving, would you steal bread from the store? They ask you questions like stuff like that. Or if you're doing a project, do you quit when it's done or when you're tired? And you don't know what the right answer is, right? So Walmart does this. If you go to Walmart, they'll do the personality test. The question they should ask if you get hired on Walmart is that, do you own a gun and are you willing to bring it in? You wouldn't bring it in if someone denied you a promotion and stuff like that. What would you do if we locked you in at night? That kind of stuff. Anyway, now, so Richard's and Dawson's scale seems to be a much more complete scale. Now, so we have these operational definitions, and again, survey data instruments are never perfect, but here are some of the things that they found out. So if you go to page 2.3, this is what they connected to some of this stuff. So this is a study done by Synopsis of Mental Disorder Study by Cohen's, and the odd ratios of that adolescents who admired materialistic values or put a priority on being rich had each disorder. So what they have here are 2 charts of materialism and being rich. Okay, so the kids that scored high on materialism and others who scored high on wanting to be rich showed much higher levels of conduct disorders, oppositional defiant disorders, attention deficit disorder, alcohol abuse, marijuana abuse, separation anxiety, major depression, schizoid, which is on the way to being crazy, schizotypal, meaning difficult having close relationships, so a lack of intimacy, paranoia, histrionic, which means excessive emotional or attention-seeking behavior. That sounds like Charlie Sheen, doesn't it? I'm on a drug, it's called Charlie Sheen. Anyway, you can't get it at the stores. Borderline, pattern of unstable relationships, mood swings, feelings of emptiness, and self-destructive behavior. That sounds like every girlfriend I've ever had. Sounds like half my family, too. Narcissistic, we talked about that as well. So, passive-aggressive means opposing demands through passive means, such as procrastinating or being intentionally inefficient, like your mom tells you to take out the trash, and you're like, yeah, I'll do it. And not only don't you do it, but you knock it down over when you go to school or something like that. That's more active-aggressive. Dependent, excessive need to be taken care of or expressed by submissive and clinging behavior. And what these odd ratios represent is anything above 1 means that you have a worse than average potential for that disorder. So, like, for example, oppositional defiant disorder is only 1.06, which means it's a mild relationship between that and materialism. Whereas being dependent, 1.8. So those people are 80% more likely than the average person to be dependent if you show materialistic values. Suicide, for example, Where was that at? Well, major depression was 1.22. Marijuana abuse, 1.79. Separation anxiety, and on and on. It says, not only do those results confirm many of the findings reported in our lab, meaning Kasser's lab, they also substantially expand the list of problems associated with materialistic values. Specifically, compared to non-materialistic teens, those with a strong orientation to materialistic values are also more likely to have difficulties with attention, exhibit unusual thoughts, meaning obsessions with morbidity and stuff and crimes, and behaviors, isolate themselves socially, believe others have malevolent intentions, have difficulties with emotional expression and controlling impulses, be either avoidant or overly dependent on other people, attempt to overly control many aspects of their environment, and relate to people in a passive-aggressive manner. And some of these things actually, stuff like have difficulties with emotional expression, that's one of the definitions of autistic spectrum disorder, isn't it? And stuff like Asperger's, like not wanting to be around people. So maybe high levels of materialism is related to autism. Now, that's somewhat of more of a genetic developmental disorder, but maybe milder forms of Asperger's or antisocial behavior are being caused by this. All right, everybody. See you. Have a good weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Make sure to keep up with the readings. Game. The implicit contract is, hey, you want a family, you want a home, you want a boat, you want a car, you do what I say. And don't argue with me, and don't challenge my ideas. And if you do, there's the door. There's 500 more people just as qualified as you are. And when the unemployment rate is high, this stuff gets worse. Because when there's a lot of people desperate for jobs, corporations can lower wages, they can increase the number of hours, they can increase the number of duties you have. Anyway. And so the author of the article goes on to say, I beg to differ. To be governor and do your job well, you have to bring more balance to your life, learn to unplug and recharge. Judgment and wisdom are more than ever what is needed in our leaders, and round-the-clock stress and exhaustion is conducive to neither. Maybe this explains why Congress never gets anything done. They're too stressed to do anything worth it. I want to see some of the comments, if there are any comments down here. I don't think there were. And that kind of sucks. Here's part of it. I guess these are some comments. Look at what somebody wrote here. Can someone send this to my upper management of my company? Look, here's a slave thing. Too many hours under stressful circumstances is not good for the individual. My place of business constantly encourages to take time off. So here's somebody different. I've been saying this for a year and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. I must be lazy. See how this impacts people's perception of who they are? Less work, more money. My husband's a computer DBA. Not sure what that means. Here we go. The French get 3 to 4 weeks off a year in the summer. May I add paid? Southern Italians go home, close offices and shop. I would say about France, Spain, and Italy, what's their economies like right now? Greece takes a lot of vacation time off too. How's that going? That's why Germany, to a lot of people, is like one of the it's the exception to the rule. French people are somewhat lazy, and their economy is terrible because of it. Again, but on some level, some people suggest certain aspects of their standard of living are higher. Anyway, and then somebody put up an advertisement in here. All right, now. Alright, so let's go to the book. As soon as this thing will turn. I love this. When I want it to turn on, it never turns. There we go. Okay. Alright, so this is what we're going to talk about here. So, some of the methods that she uses here. First of all, she used historical data. You heard in that little thing I was reading that she was using data from the past and also more current data as well. She did observation of the workplace. She didn't do participant observation, which means that she what would have been like she went in and interviewed people and she told them who she was and what she was doing. How would that be different than participant observation? How would participant observation be?
Participant observation is not supposed to know that they're being observed.
Or at the very minimum, a small amount of people know. Maybe the boss knows it because they're. But what would she have done?
Who?
to get inside the business, Arlie.
She would probably get like hired.
Yeah, she would try to apply for a job, right? And this is something that in a book called Nickel and Dime by Barbara Ehrenreich. She did that. She didn't tell Walmart what she was doing. She went to work for Walmart. She went to work for a local restaurant and all these other places. And she wanted to see if she could live on the salary that